Mark, the Passion Translation, Chapter 14. 2 days before the Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the leading priests and the religious scholars were committed to finding a way to secretly arrest Jesus and have him executed. They agreed that their plot could not succeed if they carried it out during the days of the feast, for they said there could be a riot amongst the people. Now Jesus was in Bethany, in the home of Simon, a man Jesus healed from leprosy. And as he was reclining at a table, a woman came into the house with an alabaster flask filled with the highest quality of fragrant and expensive oil. She came to Jesus, and with a gesture of extreme devotion, she broke the flask and poured out the precious oil all over his head. But some were highly indignant when they saw this, and they complained to one another, saying, "What a total waste! It could have been sold for a great sum, and the money could have benefited the poor." So they scolded her harshly. Jesus said to them, "Leave her alone. Why are you so critical of this woman? She has honored me with this beautiful act of kindness. You will always have the poor, whom you can help whenever you want, but you will not always have me. When she poured the fragrant oil over me, she was preparing my body in advance for my burial. She has done all that she could to honor me. I promise you that as this wonderful gospel spreads all over the world, the story of her lavish devotion to me will be mentioned in the memory of her." One of the 12 apostles, Judas Iscariot, went to the leading priests to inform them of his willingness to betray Jesus into their hands. They were delighted to hear this and agreed to pay him for it. So immediately Judas began to look for the right opportunity to betray him. On the first day of unleavened bread, when the Passover lamb is sacrificed, Jesus' disciples asked him, "Where would you like us to prepare the Passover meal for you?" So he sent two of his disciples ahead into Jerusalem with these instructions: "Make your way into the city and watch for a man carrying a pitcher of water. Follow him and say to the owner of whatever house he enters, 'The teacher wants to ask you, do you have my room ready where I can eat the Passover meal with my disciples?' And he will show you a large upstairs room ready and with a table set. Make preparations for us there." So they went into the city and found everything to be exactly like Jesus prophesied, and they prepared for him the Passover meal. And when evening came, he entered the house and went upstairs with his 12 disciples. Over dinner, while they were reclining around the table, Jesus said, "Listen to the truth. One of you eating here with me is about to betray me." Feeling deeply troubled by these words, one after another they asked him, "Is it I?" He answered, "It is one of you 12 who has shared meals with me as an intimate friend. All that was prophesied of me, the Son of Man, is destined to soon take place, but it will be disastrous for the one who betrays the Son of Man. It would be far better for him if he had never been born." As they were dining, Jesus took the bread and blessed it, and broke it, and gave it to his disciples. He said to them, "Receive this, it is my body." Then, taking the cup of wine and giving thanks to the Father, he declared the new covenant with them. And as each one drank from the cup, he said to them, "This is my blood, which seals the new covenant, poured out for many. I tell you the truth, I will not drink again of the fruit of the vine until the day comes when we drink it together in the kingdom feast of my Father." Then they sang a psalm and afterwards left for the Mount of Olives. Jesus said to them, "You will all fall away and desert me. This will fulfill the prophecy of the scripture that says, 'I will strike down the shepherd, and all the sheep will scatter.' But after I am risen, I will go ahead of you to Galilee." Then Peter spoke up and said, "Even if all the rest lose their faith and fall away, I will still be beside you." Jesus said, "Mark my words, Peter, This very night, before the rooster crows twice, a few hours from now, you will deny that you know me 3 times. But Peter was insistent and replied emphatically, I will absolutely not. Under no circumstances will I ever deny you, even if I have to die with you. And all of the others repeated the same thing. Then Jesus led his disciples to an orchard called the oil press. He told them, sit here while I pray a while. He took Peter, Jacob, and John with him. An intense feeling of great horror plunged his soul into deep sorrow, and he said to them, my heart is overwhelmed with anguish and crushed with grief. It feels as though I'm dying. Stay here and keep watch with me. He walked a short distance away, and being overcome with grief, he threw himself face down on the ground. He prayed that if it were possible, he would not have to experience this hour of suffering. He prayed, Abba, my Father, all things are possible for you. Please remove this cup of suffering. Yet, what I want is not important, for I only desire to fulfill your plan for me. Then he came back to his 3 disciples and found them all sound asleep. He awakened Peter and said to him, Simon, are you asleep? Do you lack the strength to stay awake with me for even just an hour? Keep alert and pray that you'll be spared from this time of testing, for your spirit is eager enough, but your humanity is feeble. Then he left them a second time and went to pray the same thing. Afterward, he came back to the disciples and found them sound asleep, for they couldn't keep their eyes open and didn't know what to say to him. After praying for the third time, he returned to his disciples and awoke them again, saying, do you plan on sleeping and resting indefinitely? That's enough sleep. The end has come, and the hour has arrived for the Son of Man to be handed over to the authority of sinful men. Get up and let's go. Don't you see, my betrayer draws near. At that moment, Judas, one of the 12, arrived along with the large crowd of men armed with swords and clubs. They had been sent to arrest Jesus by the order of the ruling priests, the religious scholars, and Jewish leaders. Now Judas, the traitor, had arranged to give them a signal that would identify Jesus, for he had told them, Jesus is the man I will kiss. So arrest him and take him away. Judas quickly stepped up to Jesus and said, Rabbi, my teacher, and he kissed him on both cheeks. Then the armed men seized Jesus to arrest him. One of the disciples pulled out a sword and swung it at the servant of Caiaphas the high priest, slashing his ear off. Jesus said to the mob, Why would you arrest me with swords and clubs as though I were an outlaw? Day after day I sat with you in the temple courts, teaching the people, yet you did not arrest me then. But all of this fulfills the prophecies of the scripture. At that point, all of his disciples ran away and abandoned him. There was a young man there following Jesus, wearing only a linen sheet wrapped around him. They tried to arrest him also, but he slipped from their grip and ran away naked, leaving the linen cloth in their hands. Those who arrested Jesus led him away to Caiaphas, the high priest, to a meeting where the religious scholars and Jewish leaders were assembled. Now Peter had followed him from the distance all the way to chief priest's courtyard. He sat down with the guards and was warming himself by the fire. The chief priests and the Jewish council of leaders were doing their best to find false charges that they could bring against Jesus and condemn them to death, but they could not find any. Many false witnesses came forward, but the evidence could not be corroborated. Some came forward and testified against him, saying, We heard him say, I can destroy the temple made with hands, and then build another one in 3 days not made with hands. Yet, even on this point, the witnesses did not agree. Finally, the chief priest stood up in the middle of them and said to Jesus, Have you nothing to say about these allegations? Is what they're saying about you true? But Jesus remained silent before them and did not answer. So the chief priest said to him, "Are you the anointed Messiah, the Son of the blessed God?" Jesus answered them, "I am, and more than that, you are about to see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of the Almighty and coming in the heavenly clouds." Then, as an act of outrage, the high priest tore his robe and shouted, "No more witnesses are needed, for you've heard this grievous blasphemy." Turning to the council, he said, "Now what is your verdict?" "He is guilty and deserves the death penalty," they all answered. Then they spat onto his face and blindfolded him. Others struck him over and over with their fists and taunted him by saying, "Prophesy to us, tell us which one of us is about to hit you next." And then the guards took him and beat him. Meanwhile, Peter was sitting below in the courtyard when a girl, a servant of the high priest, came near the fire. When she saw Peter there warming himself, she said to him, "I recognize you. You were with that Nazarene, Jesus." But Peter denied it, saying, "I have no clue what you're talking about." Then he went out to the gateway of the courtyard, and the rooster crowed. When this servant girl noticed him, she said to all the bystanders, "I know this man. This is one of his followers." Once again, Peter denied it. A short time later, the bystander said to him, "You must be one of them. You're a Galilean like he is, for your accent proves it." Peter cursed and said, "I tell you, I don't know the man you're talking about." At the same moment Peter spoke those words, the sound of a rooster crowing pierced the night for the second time, and Peter remembered the words of Jesus had spoken to him earlier. "Before the rooster crows twice, you will deny me 3 times." With his heart shattered, Peter broke down and sobbed with bitter tears.